What can you do when you want to practice a tough skill like portrait painting to make it easier and faster? A few months back, I tried something new that helps me practice and learn faster. And today, I'll test it with portrait in gouache. Welcome or welcome back, I'm Françoise. So I don't know what I'm doing with gouache. I'm a beginner at this point. I did just a few paintings with it before, almost a year ago, and I never tried portrait. My other problem is I mostly tried gouache like watercolors, which means I was adding a lot of water to it, but today I wanted it right to get the opaque and matte gouache look. I looked up the basics online and it seems you can paint from light to dark or dark to light, so I'm just gonna wing it because I'm still confused. So what I've noticed is that it's much easier and faster to practice when you use a coloring book for adults. It takes away the worry of having an accurate sketch, even though it's an essential skill we all need to learn, and it also relieves the fear of starting. If you're familiar with this channel, you have seen these cute designs from the book series Coloriage Wild by Emmanuelle Colin. This is just one option out of the many coloring books out there, but for me it's a favorite because the drawings are super cute, the shading is done for you in case you're not sure where to add it, and the paper is thick enough to handle a lot of mediums. I tried it recently with watercolors too, after priming it with gesso, and it was a great experience. I also love that designs come in twice, which is even better to take the fear of failure away. I'm going into this painting a bit nervous, to be honest, even though the coloring books makes it easy for me to paint. So I'm just going to share my process and see how the design helps. I've placed all links to my supplies in the description of my video so you can find them for yourself. I want to work with these colors, the primaries for the skin tone and black and white for shadows and highlights. I like crimson over just a plain red color because I want this piece to look as mysterious as the girl's gaze. And I want it to feel like she comes from ancient times, so the colors won't be flashy. I thought it would be nice to try and do an underpainting, so I looked that up since I had no clue if it works with an opaque medium like gouache, and it sure does apparently. This technique helps in adding depth to a painting and make it more interesting in a way that's very subtle. And in my case, the raven will be dark and the girl's hair too, but I do not want a plain black color at all on both. Hence this idea of the underpainting. I want hints of blue showing through the raven's black feathers, that's why I picked that, and the girl's hair will have hints of that crimson color to tie this to the color of her lips and cheeks. I've added some water for this step, but for what's coming, I don't want to get trapped into using gouache like watercolors as I have before, so I'm careful to add some water but not too much. I've learned that it should be easy to paint and layer nicely on paper at the same time. I learned that the consistency should make it easy to paint. When there's too much water, you can normally tell and the gouache doesn't look opaque or even smooth everywhere. My fear is to lose the design, so I'm trying to paint by section, and I also want to complete the raven before moving on to the girl, just because I need to warm up and gain confidence using gouache. I do have the second design sitting in front of me, so I still have that if I lose the lines, which is nice. Another important thing I'm doing here is to mix up several colors, not just use black. And it works for all mediums, so I'm able to reuse general knowledge for something that's pretty new to me. I'm trying to build up the impression of black with a mix of white and black and blue, and then I can have the strongest shadows stand out because I'll have the option to use just black alone for those. And next to that, we'll also be able to build up a gradient from dark to light grays with the addition of more or less white, and later I plan to add strong white paint for the strong highlights. So by playing with the amount of paint I'm mixing into another, I'm able to build up realism. I knew from previous paintings that watercolor paintbrushes can be used for gouache, so I went with my usual silver brush black velvet here, and it's working well because the pointed tip helps with the precision, and I also like that I can add texture and a hair effect with the bristles. At about 3/4 of the work on this raven, I find I have a rhythm now. I feel like I know what I'm doing more, and I see my techniques working. I know it's better to wait for the paint to dry before adding on top, and so far, the few clues I've gathered from quickly researching on the internet make sense. And I hadn't found a clear answer of whether to paint from light to dark or dark to light with gouache, but here really, I've been switching going back and forth, and it really doesn't make a difference so far, as long as the paintbrush is clean for different colors to show. And a tip is to actually use several paintbrushes to make the process faster. I'm almost done with the Raven, and so far I'm happy. This is super satisfying. I can see myself painting the other designs in the book with it, and the small amount of water is really compatible with a coloring book like this one, since with watercolor you need to prime your paper, as I've explained in another video, but here you can jump straight into creating. For the portrait itself, I know red, blue, and yellow mixed together yield nice skin tones. What I didn't think of, and it took me a minute, is that you can't add water like watercolors, or you could, but that's not what I want to do. So I had my little light bulb moments, and now I'm adding white as a way to make the skin tone lighter. It makes sense, but I just didn't think about it immediately. To tell you the truth, these first strokes on the face feel wrong to me. It's still too dark, all the lines are visible, it's not smooth. So I think I can fix it, but for now I'm back to square one, trying to get a feel for how to paint a face with gouache. Out of desperation, I'm just gonna take care of the eyes, and we'll see what we do for the skin after that. With a lot more white in the paint, this is better already. I know many gouache artists block in colors, and that ends up looking great. My problem with that is that I'm obsessed with smoothness. My art needs to be smooth, and it's very hard with gouache so far, but I'm sure I'll figure out a technique. I also love it when the art looks the same from up close and from far. That's why I don't go with bigger shapes of color, and instead I like it all smooth and colors to blend in seamlessly. Compared to the Raven and the eyes, I can clearly see my biggest issue is there's too much ground to cover with the skin. That's why my strokes are so visible. So I'm changing to a round paintbrush, and it's a lot better. Sometimes you really just need to change one thing. I love the idea of using colors in my palette for the shadows in the face, rather than making a darker version of the skin color. So I'm gonna do it with blue mixed to a little bit of black, because I don't want it to look flashy, since I prefer muted colors. I'm not completely comfortable with sculpting the face features yet, to be honest, but I've made some progress. And I'm determined to nail the portrait to the best of my current ability, especially because the bird looks great, and I think the hair will be easy to paint after all this. I had lost the nose, so I found it again thanks to my other copy of the drawing. The priority will be to outline these features clearly so I can keep working. I've been working on this for a while now, still trying to find a good balance between adding the right colors and getting a smooth look all over. The shadows have been the most challenging so far when it comes to having them blend into the rest of the painting. I'm adding my crimson color to the lips now, and I find it easier to render what I'm going for on this small area. I'm taking a small break from the face, and I want to do the hair. I mixed a lot of black with a crimson color, and it's looking beautiful. I'm using the same technique I did for the Raven's feathers. I keep lightening the color to add subtle highlights, and later I can add strong shadows with black and bright highlights with white. With this gorgeous color, I'm starting to notice I can enhance the shadows in the face so it matches the rest and ties everything in, and it's working like a charm. I have a diluted mix of my crimson plus white paint here, and it's easy to layer. Another way I'm finding to blend the skin tones in really well is also to reactivate the whole area slightly with water. I'm not sure it's a standard way of using gouache, but I'm all about the results. I'll be able to get through that kind of experimentation, so for now I'll keep going. I'm curious to know what you think of this gouache painting process. Maybe unusual, I'm not sure. I'm really happy with how it turned out though, even though it's challenging to say the least, but for me, as long as I managed to get it right, especially on a first try, I'm happy, and I think these coloriage wild books will be very helpful in practicing more gouache portraits. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!